Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Here we are again. Lucky to be here, I guess.
Yes.
Well, it's the same old we talk about each time. What they call, for want of a better name, I guess, is non-duality. And that's all it is, non-duality. It's just a label or a name. But what it refers to is the one essence, the one, what I call, for want of a better term also, one intelligence energy that's forming, functioning and expressing as this universe and everything in it. Because there can be nothing separate. That part of non-duality is correct because it points to one without a second, not two. Nothing other than that one. And there couldn't be one without the other. So if it's one without a second, not two, all the so-called other is the one expressing in different patterns, shapes and forms, seemingly, but it's made up of the one essence. And the only way they can be discriminated is by putting the word on them. And realise the word's never the thing, the word's not the real. Take the word water, drink the word if you can, swim in the word, wash in the word, drown in the word. You can't. The word fire, does it burn your mouth? Can you cook with it? Can you eat it? Can't. So what's this other label we put on ourselves? I or me on the so-called person. All words. And that's what it tells you in the Bible, isn't it? In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God. The Word was God. So that's all that God is the Word. A label we put on what I call intelligence energy, which is just another word, to discriminate it. But we've taken that to be somebody in the human form that's much greater than we are, sitting up on a cloud somewhere, judging us all, waving a finger around, blaming us and beating us up. And a lot of us, like we fall for the persona, the believed in person, believe in that. Call it a higher power or a greater power. But there's only one power if it's the one essence appearing and expressing it. And so it's omnipotence, total power. And it's totally present, omnipresence. Omniscience, it's total intelligence. And that's the label I put on it, intelligence energy. Intelligence is knowing, not your intellects. They're working it out. But the very fact of knowing that you are right now. You're not thinking intelligently, I am. There's a knowing that you are. And that knowing, I-N-G, is an activity, a movement, just the same as the thinking, the seeing, the hearing, the tasting, touching, smelling. They're all activities taking place right in this immediacy. So it's the activity of knowing. Intelligence. And because it's an activity, any movement is a vibration, a movement of energy. So that's where I get the term intelligence energy, the activity of knowing. And they call it that in the Hindu scriptures, and they call it Advaita. Advaita means non-duality, not two. And the five factors of that Advaita is Sat, Chit, Ananda, Nama, Rupa. Sat is existence. Chit is consciousness. Ananda is bliss, or we get locked into that one too. I think bliss is one explosive, wonderful thing that's with us forever. But it's just the joyousness of being. Ananda is So, and the nama rupa are the names and forms. So have a look at that, investigate. That's the label they put on it. Anyone who is not existing right now, you must realise, no, I'm existing. I'm not existing. I can't say I'm not, so I must be. Anyone who's not conscious right now, and you realise, no, I'm conscious, I'm awake, I'm aware right here, right now. And anyone who's not happy to be, well, isn't there a joy in being? That's the bliss of being, and loving to be. And the nama rupa, the name and form, they say is maya, and they mean by maya it's illusory. What are they talking about, name and form? Well, that nama rupa, that's the name we've been given by our parents, or whoever it was that named us. And the form is this body. So the body, mind of everyone, the name and rupa, have all got different labels on them, different names. And we don't realise the names we put upon ourselves give us that seeming persona, personality. Where does the word persona come from? It comes from the Latin, I think it was, thousands of years ago. It's a root from Latin, right? Meaning mask, pointing out that this illusionary pattern we call the body-mind, which is illusory, is the mask we put upon ourselves because we take it to be real. Instead of seeing it all as the one essence, we've got this illusory mask on, this persona. But you know it's not real anyway, even though we believe it is, but you say, my body. Now if it's my body, my house, my car, you know that the house or the car, who's the my, me or the my it belongs to? And you think, oh, it's me, I'm this person. But are you the persona? Are you the mask? Are you the image? So, you can't have a look at this body. We say you need to investigate these things and see for yourself. Can you turn that clock around so I can keep an eye on the time? And that's what we say, the false cannot stand up to investigation. And you already innately know this because there's many things you've investigated, you've been able to investigate and see through. Like the blue sea, you go down to the ocean, try and get a bucket of blue water out of the sea, you can't. Doesn't stop appearing to be blue, but you know it's not blue in reality. The water's not blue, it appears to be. Blue sky, rainbow, water in the mirage. Many metaphors they point out. The flat earth, they think the earth was flat. Many people believe that for years. Who would believe it today has been investigated. So you see when they say it's true, the false cannot stand up to investigation. How many of us have investigated this persona? We don't investigate it and see that it's false. We think it's real, and we've got to become realised. We've got to make it more real than what it appears to be. We think we've lost sight. Realise it, liberate it from it. Doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. Why isn't everybody liberated? Or realise? The very fact of becoming can't happen, for a start off. You can never become something, but you haven't negated the beingness that you are right now. So, and realise, where have you tried to become? We've tried to find the answer in the mind. There have been people down through the ages that have seen, so-called people, as I say, have seen through this. They recognised their true nature. And that's where all the great traditions come from. The great real religious traditions come from somebody that's investigated and seen the light, seen the truth, and put their words down. And others have picked up. Some have seen through it and been able to carry on. Others have put their version on it and formed religions, trying to bind the rest of the people. So to keep them in bondage instead of letting them recognise their true nature and be free. And that's the scriptural saying, know the truth and the truth will set you free. What are you free from? The only thing you need to be free from is the belief that you are separate from that truth. You are a separate entity, an individual, a person. But there is no separation in this manifestation, if you look on it closely. I use the term no one-ended stick to try and point it out. Each stick's got two ends on it. Each coin's got two sides to it. And look at your mind and see how the so-called thing you call your mind functions. Functions with words, ideas, thoughts. And how do those thoughts express? Watch what you're thinking and see how they express. It's always thinking in the pairs of opposites. Good, bad, pleasant, painful, happy, sad, loving, hating, positive, negative, whatever words you like. Always vibrating in the opposite. North, south, always in the opposite. But we think those opposites are separate. And we want the good, we don't want the bad. We want the pleasant, we don't want the painful. Not reasoning that they're both the same stick, two ends of it. It's all the one. And so we try and discriminate it. We don't want to live with the opposite. And so when it's not happening, we look deeper into the mind, try and find another answer, another solution. And you don't. Some of us might have been seeking 10, 20, 30 or 40 years, meditating, do all the scriptural practices they tell you to do, doing them earnestly and sincerely, like I did for years. And I can't say it didn't help, but I can't say it did help. Because it always took me further in the looking, till I reached, I can't say it was a destination because I didn't know what it was when I got there. I met somebody that pointed out to me in a way, a resonance with him or something in the tone or in the essence which was coming through as he expressing through, that I was able to resonate with it and recognise what was being said. And told me the same thing I'd heard many, many times. And the same thing you'll read many times and see, that I am that. That is the great mantra. And I couldn't see the truth of that. But looking around now, I see that everything is that. There is nothing that is not that, which I was saying all along. Because that's the chair you're sitting in, that's the carpet, that's the sea, that's the sky, that's the tree. Everything is that which we put a label on. This or that is me. I am that, but I'm not that persona, Bob, the vast conceptual. I am the same as every other that is, the absolute, the one without a second, the true non-dual that they talk about. It's never separate, it's never been divided into two. One, all the one. Appearing in the many different pattern shapes and forms. And look at this body. Am I this body? A little bit of investigation will show you clearly I'm not the body. What's this body made up of? You realise the body's made up of elements. It's made up of air, earth, fire, water, space. Just the same as the elements I'm sitting in. I'm sitting in the space. There's air in the space. And there's oceans in the space. There's fire, the sun in the space, and the heat in the space. All these things are in that space-like awareness. It's the awareness of the pure existence that's expressing. That's what consciousness is. The first thing that moves away from awareness is consciousness. And all consciousness is existence. Totally aware or utterly aware that it exists. But then we add to it exists like this or that or something else, all the other words we've learned, and divide it up again. And the recognising of that, that's where the freedom, peace, and joy comes in. Life is a lot easier, but it doesn't stop a lot of the opposites from still happening, because that's the way it functions, just the same as it does in nature. Earth rolling around the sun. Here it's facing the sun round, it's morning, and it's light, and it's warmth. Keeps moving around later on. I won't put up the word time on, because later on when it moves around there, it'll move away from the light and there'll be darkness. But does the earth know anything about rolling around the sun? And does the sun know anything about the earth? It doesn't. Now, does darkness know anything about light? Because all the darkness is the absence of light. It doesn't. Does light know anything about darkness? It doesn't, because it's the absence of darkness. So you can't say it is or it isn't. But we are taking these bodies to be real. I am this persona. I am this mask. How does it come about? Well, if I'm not the body made up of elements, all those elements, if you look into them, can be broken down to subatomic particles. And those particles can be broken down into pure energy. Now, all this body is, when it's broken down, is nothing but a vibrating pattern of energy that's seemingly solidified. The essence, instead of being the essence, the centre of it, seemingly solidified into a solid pattern, just like blood congeals, seemingly becomes more solid. And spirit, we call this essence spirit. And we think we are spiritual. But then we've taken on these body minds and they've been material. So spirit and matter are the two appearing opposites. And they're in conflict, of course. The two can't meet. It's either one or the other. Just the same. So recognise that all there is spirit, essence. But spirit, if it didn't congeal, didn't form patterns to express there could be no expression. It would just be that scent or essence, or that perfume, if you like, of pure knowing, which they call in some of the scriptures the unborn Buddha mind. Pure mind, in other words, without any concepts attaching to it. Pure mind. That's all that pure mind is. And you can get that taste of that right now. Look around the room. Look at all the objects that are appearing in the room. Don't put a label on any of them. Don't say that's a picture, that's the wall, that's the chair. Just see them as they are. And look round quickly, look away, and realise that you didn't see one just a homogeneous blob there without labelling. You saw everything distinct and separate, but you put the labels on to discriminate. If you didn't discriminate it had all been the one. And it is the one. Because the pictures are on the wall. The wall is in space, made up of bricks and things in space. What's space in? Postulate or tell me or think of something that could be outside of space. Not one thing at all can be outside. What would it be in? Like the smallest thing you can imagine, minutest thing. Well, how much space is within that? Take the largest thing. It's full of space. Can you find any boundaries to it? So the things that appear in space, smaller than the smallest, they are space. And the largest can't be out of space because you can't put any boundary in it. But it appears to be encompassed, so we've encased ourselves in this space. So they're all things. And we don't realise that. We've learnt these words. And not realising that the chair's a thing, the tree's a thing, the flower's a thing. Everything is in space. And you and I are things. Space is empty. It is no things, but people say nothing. Then you put that term nothing on it, they've immediately got the idea it's zilch, zero, empty, nothing. But all they mean by that is no thing. It's no pattern, shape or form, though it appears as pattern, shapes or form. They are things, but the pattern, shape and form are not the reality. It's the essence itself. It is the cognising emptiness, as the Buddhists call it that. They understood this. Not all of them. There are millions of Buddhists that don't understand it. Just the same as there are millions of Christians, Muslims and Hindus that don't understand. They're mouthing the words and putting on their beliefs and their activities on it, but not really grasping the true essence of what they are. And if they did, a lot of these little religions would dissolve, just the same as a lot of the troubles that are going on in the world. Because realise, look at it this way, if you haven't got a mental concept about yourself, as soon as you've got that, that's all that this image about yourself is, a mental construct, a mental concept. And you walk into a room of people, you immediately form a concept about them. Subtly, you mightn't realise, but subtly, oh, she's this or he's that, and look at him, and blah, blah, blah. It's all going on in there. And you've got this concept about yourself. And realise those ones you've got the concept about have a concept about you. And they'll have a concept about themselves. Now all the concept is a mental construct, a thought, a mental construct. Now if you ask yourself this simple question, which concept would be right? Which thought would be right? And you realise there's no concept that's right. No mental construct is right at all. So if there's no mental construct or concept that can be right, who can be superior to you? Can you put that word superiority onto yourself? Who could be inferiority? And what would you want of the other people? So a lot of these problems would dissolve if we weren't putting all these concepts on. The same with the politicians in one party or another party, or different nations, this one football team better than the other football team, so it goes on. Without the concept, seeing everything as it is. It'd be much more natural, because that's what the so-called realisation or recognition of your own true nature is. You're reckoning to see everything as it is in its true light, just as it is, unaltered, unmodified, uncorrected. No preference, no partiality, no comparison. And it changes by itself, just the same as you've changed, just the same as I've changed. And you recognise, investigate that, you'll see there is nothing, all this manifestation, it's all transient, it's all constantly changing. All constantly changing. And investigate a bit further if you don't believe that. And realise that body, you walked into the room wherever you are and turned on the Skype, and I'm looking at it right now, is changing right now. Mightn't realise it. Not just a little bit, but there are thousands of cells. You could believe in the scientists, what they tell you. They'll tell you there are thousands of cells dying in it right now and being replaced. They've got to look into things as much as they can in the mental health. They don't seem to be able to go that a little bit beyond that and see the absolute in itself. Because they just go back and create more worlds and more different ages and things like that for it to appear in. They're getting a good grasp of things, looking at it closely. But the ancients knew, there were very few of them could see it. And those that did, they were set up as saints, sages, saviours, seers, and even gods, and worshipped as the messenger. A messenger, well, that's all they are, is a messenger. Nobody, but they set them separate and apart. They know more than what I do. They're more than what I am. They're closer to this God than what I am. So I'll worship them and they'll take me to him. They worship the messenger and miss altogether the message that the messenger put out there in the first place. The message was very simple. Thou art that, thou art already that, there is only that. It's all absolute, it's all the one without a second. And that's what needs to happen. You go back and I can go on anyway, but
would you like a question?
use these questions there. We'll get them. It's pretty very good group here as a rule because the questions are right on the wall and some of them know just as much as I do and they're probably getting sick and tired of hearing it over and over.
No way.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
So we'll take some questions. We've got Kat here that'll say a few words too.
Yeah, I'll give you a question first. It is a wonderful question. I love that question and that topic. All the scriptures describe a merciful God. Is this true?
Well, if you are one without a second, there is only God who needs to be merciful or not merciful.
Yeah.
You think somebody's going to do it for you or give it to you?
Yeah.
God is the absolute, and you recognise yourself as the absolute. That natural mercy will be mercifulness there. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord. And the recognition of that goodness and mercy will follow you.
Can I add to it? I'll just add to it.
Hi everyone. I really love that question because it has a couple of aspects. Merciful God. One of the aspects is in regard to the appearance, how actually the whole manifestation, the whole projection works. So if you say there is a merciful God, you experience the merciful God. So if you say life is looking after you and you are taken care and loved, you will find evidence for your belief. But when you actually recognize that this is still a belief, the amount of freedom of dropping the preference for God to be on the side of good or on the side of love and against the bad and against the evil is even greater, because unconditional love is the love that embraces the good and the evil, the being merciful and not being merciful, to having a favor over one appearance or the other. You know, like you were giving that example about Pope blessing the army of Nazis, that God is with you, and the other side also blessing their armies, that God is with them. There is a freedom beyond the preferences and beyond the duality and descriptions of what is that God outside of me, because it is nowhere where it is not. Like Bob started the spiel in the beginning, omnipresence, omnipotence, there is absolutely nowhere where it is not to be found when you see it. When you also said, I'm missing the words. Yeah, well, it's everything is that. Recognizing that everything is that. Evil also, the witch hunt also, all of it. And the freedom in realizing that you may actually watch your own crucifixion and be free in that, like Jesus. That's the freedom.
Yeah, as you said earlier, you know, God's on my side. Everybody says in the wars, God's with us, and the other side says God's with us. Who they want God on my side? Who wants to be on God's side?
Yes.
Be a different story, wouldn't it?
That's it. Yeah. And again, as Bob says in the very beginning, why differentiate me versus God? It is not two. It's
Who was that question from?
That was from Shana.
Shana.
Yeah. And we have a lot of beautiful welcoming messages and thank you messages. And Jane says, love is without condition. That's right. And that love without condition embraces the absence of love also.
Yeah, have a look at that unconditional. Don't they say God is love?
Yeah.
Well, if God is love, love must be God also. We've got the idea that God, this love, is something separate.
Yeah, that's the love without
Yeah,
the opposite.
It's another label for this thing we call God. There are many millions of labels we put on it. And God is love. Love must be God.
Yeah. And Patricia is saying thank you. Hi, Patricia.
Patricia.
Yeah, from Argentina.
Oh! Hi, Patricia. Love you.
Love you. And you're such an inspiration, she says.
So are you.
Mm.
Don't forget it.
No, she knows. Yeah, she's doing a beautiful job where she is.
Yeah.
And so does Sharna. And many of people who are here with us. It's just consciousness expressing through different channels and spreading the light and reminders. So that, yeah. And now we have Steve. Preferences still happen in the one essence, but for nobody or no fixed person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as you're not fixated on the preferences, the great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences.
Yeah.
When love and hate are both absent, everything becomes clear and undisguised. Make the smallest distinction, however, and heaven and earth are set infinitely apart. So see what they've done there. Not just love and hate they talk about, and heaven and earth and everything at all. Anything we're discriminating and have preferences over, we've divided it, and they become infinitely apart. They're not together, not in the one at all. When they're apart, there's conflict.
Yeah.
Separation.
And yes, understanding it in a way that you have to get rid of preferences is completely missing out, because preferences arise and move on, and the way to leave them unaltered, unmodified, uncorrected is to just let them pass as clouds. You don't have to get rid of them, you don't have to hold on to it, there's nothing to be done.
Yeah, it tells you that in that same Hensing Ming. Yeah, he said, hold no opinions for or against anything. If you wish to see the truth, then hold no opinions for or against anything. It's the opinions, set opinions, you know, my opinion.
Yeah, they'll
That
come
causes
and
a
go.
sense of separation.
They will still come, like Steve is saying, they will come.
Yeah.
But if you don't hold on to it, if there is no one who is grasping and sustaining them, putting the fuel on the fire.
That's what it says. It doesn't say opinions won't be there or preferences won't be there.
Yeah.
But hold no opinion. Don't hang.
Yes.
We cling to things.
Now we have another one from Sharna. But then we do create all of our experiences. Then, do we create all of our experiences? Are we responsible for everything that happens to us as the absolute?
There's no we. There can be the absolute will be responsible and is for everything. But when we believe we're separate and we take on that belief that we are separate, then we suffer accordingly. Not if things come up, have a look at it. You know, things come up and I like it. How do you know? Well, I've experienced this before and it's good, and we want to keep the good things. Not realising that it's always vibrating in the opposites. The bad things are still at the other end of the stick's going to come up sooner or later, but we don't want the other end. So we resist it. We try to keep this one, good one, going. We resist it from going. And the resistance, again, is conflict. We're struggling with it. We're in conflict with it. War with it. And conflict is uneasiness. It's anxiety. It's stress. It's guilt. It's fear. And that uneasiness, another term, simple term for it, is dis-ease. So there's resistance, conflict, and dis-ease. Something comes up that we don't like. Instead of trying to hang on to this one, we try to get rid of it, try to force it away. The minds come into play again. We don't want to get rid of it. And we struggle to force it out. We're in conflict with it. And again, uneasiness and disease. So that goes on all the time with us until you realise you are the totality anyway, and leave it as it is. Like the day will become night, the night will become day. And it'll move on if it's allowed to move on, with the least resistance to it. You mightn't like it, and not going to happen, but the least resistance to it, it's going to quickly move on again. But the more we cling to it and keep it there, the longer it lasts. And some of the things we hang on to for years and years and years, and beat ourselves up with it, with words. I have all sorts of things come up now. They don't seemingly last for very long. It might take one episode, might decide itself, and might take a few weeks for the next episode to arise. But that will come and go also, whether it's for the better or for the worse, you know. And all that can happen is this pattern can break down. And where's it going to go? There's no pattern expressed to who can attack it, or who would want to, you know.
Yeah, but I do love that question also, because on one hand you could actually say that we as absolute, but of course, as Bob pointed, there is no we, there is no space for we, there is nothing that is not it. So the whole universe is actually bubbling with the way of the energy showing up as form. So actually in the body the energy is moving, and because of that energy being contextualized and given a story, suddenly the movement is interpreted as excitement or as anxiety or as whatever it is that the rest, you know, the context, the mind interprets it. That's how the universe comes into existence. And the same sort of a pattern of creating movement of energy and interpreting the movement creates the interactions with the rest of points in the appearance. Nobody does it in anyone. It is all happening simultaneously by that same very pattern of adding meaning to the plain movement. There is a stillness, there is a movement, and there is a meaning coming, story coming into it. From every direction. It's not located. It's not here that I am projecting my world and somebody else is projecting their world. It may seem this way, but it doesn't have any location. Because the human experience is included as much as the inclusion of the total experience, then yes, the sense of location, bodily location, is also included. So the sense that the pain is happening in one body is kind of more intimately known in this particular location, but this location is part of the display, is part of the illusion, because there must be a seeming separation for that to be a joining and union and anything at all, but it's not real. It can't be because it can only dream that it is separate. And in this way, how is the absolute, we as absolute, responsible for everything? It doesn't even have that meaning making capacity to take credit or take responsibility. As God, who doesn't value anything as good or heavy or bad, it cannot even come up with the story of being responsible for the actions and things bringing on itself. It just doesn't apply. In the human, it does.
It is everything. How can it
be
responsible for everything? It is everything.
That's right.
Nothing that is not it.
But I also know where the question comes from, and I know where the question is pointing to. It actually happens, it appears in Course in Miracles, and it helps sometimes when someone is stuck in a juncture of being a victim. So now just embracing, taking responsibility that as part of the totality, whatever is happening to you, you've asked and requested and receiving as you asked, but it is not really meant as a personal doer having personal responsibility for the personal world, because there is no doer.
It's amazing how it functions.
And Claire says, you are amazing. Sending you love.
Who?
Claire. Claire.
Where?
Mm-hmm. And Patricia says, love is God.
Yeah.
Love you, precious beings. We love
Mm.
you. We are creation itself.
Yeah.
No me or we, Jane.
Yeah,
Mm.
that is so, yeah. Look at the way, amazing ways it functioned.
Mm.
40 odd years ago, the little embryo in a place called Poland appeared on the scene.
Darling, you
Didn't
always
know.
give me 48 years.
Well,
Like from last
What a-
5 years.
take it. Well,
Yeah, I'll be 46 in a few days.
46 years ago, had no idea that 45 years later she'd be in a place called Australia and meet an old guy in Australia who had no idea that he'd lived. He lived about 80 odd years before she came into existence. Didn't know how it was interconnected. So it starts there, the vibration. It started here 80 odd years before that.
Mm.
And 40 years of that was with my first wife. And that came into being. Anyway, it finished up. We are together, naturally, effortlessly, spontaneously.
A
It
miraculous.
happened without much effort.
Mm.
And that doesn't go down well with a lot of the other so-called patterns. I see differences and all sorts of concepts they can put on. All depends on which way you look at things.
Amazing.
But just,
anyway.
yeah, it's amazing, just like that domino thing, make a big stack of dominoes up and some of the people have it go for all over the room and up high and them, knock one over and the rest fall down, tumble down afterwards. Yeah. Everything's interconnected.
Mm.
So that's what time goes out of the whole matter, place goes out of the whole matter. It's all the one essence, appearing, patterning, shaping, forming as everything, everywhere, every when, every here, every now. Time goes out of the door, place goes out of the door. It's always this immediacy.
Mm.
And just like on the ocean, an explosion can go under the sea down in South America or somewhere, and a few months later a tsunami will appear in Japan or somewhere. I don't know which way they go.
Yeah, well,
But
there's
somewhere in
stories
some
say
distant
both ways.
country.
Yeah. Chicago in Japan, I heard the story about the butterfly effect. Then I heard another story about, I think was London and something.
Uh,
Yeah. Stories. Don't we love the stories?
yeah.
Don't we love the projections?
But see, you can really not separate anything.
No. Yeah, the interdependence and interconnectedness is just such a beautiful characteristic of the whole play. Like, the people who actually missed out, Bob, entirely, for all their lives, they were having a story. And they completely overlooked this guy. How amazing. This is how, and including people who were actually considering him a teacher, the messenger, story about the messenger, completely missing out the message. And the messenger also. How incredible, how beautiful, how mind-blowing to actually see it right in front of you. And everyone would have a story from their own life when people were projecting shit on you. And they completely missed you in this one. So this is something when you observe in the whole interplay without taking it personally, you are totally mind-blown at the beauty and intricacy and almost like reality of that game, which you see is just a play. It can't be true because, how could it?
And everybody's had tastes of it throughout their life, no matter who it is.
Yeah.
Always brief moments when everything fell into place just beautifully.
Mm.
But instead of following it up, they go back into the old conceptual beliefs that we've taken on and try and work it out again in the mind.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen.
And we have, yeah.
That's how it is also. It's not their fault because there's no one,
Absolutely. No, there's no one
no
there.
one to have any fault. That's how it is. Every tree, every cone on the tree with thousands of seeds in it, and not every seed's not going to sprout.
Mhm.
Otherwise the earth would be covered in trees.
Yeah. Also, don't we love the drama? The beautiful, juicy stories of a great dramas. People just, life would be so blunt without it. Yeah, and the bigger projections, you know, the less of the ownership of being that totality, of being that everything. Rather than just presenting yourself as a saint and projecting your shadow out there. You know, I am the angel and this is a witch and this is a devil. So instead of actually bringing back and own your own capacity to bite, to spit, to love, to hate, to all of it, and just see what the pattern does, see how it behaves, and just watch the dance without preference, without contriving it, without trying to be something else, more holy or more saint, or just authenticity of being, just honesty of being, and unconditional acceptance of that being. That's the freedom. And also unconditional acceptance of them with their projections, with them missing out. What can you say? Although, you know, compassion is inevitable. And John David.
Hi, John David.
Hey, John David. Can you speak about awareness as the world being one? I struggled with this when I first heard the message, thinking I had to be awareness without thoughts, and was then feeling separate from the world. Awareness and the world being one. World and awareness being one.
Yeah. What I call awareness is first. That's the sense of presence that's being there. The awareness of being, pure being. And that awareness, nobody is unaware right now. You know for certain that you are that awareness right now. Everything appears in awareness. That's the definition of reality, is that which never changes. Now the awareness, without being embodied, or because all the bodies embodies form in that awareness. Awareness without being embodied is the absolute, is the totality. But we put labels on it and say it's all different labels. Call it God, call it essence, call it intelligence, call it energy. But that awareness, being in pure intelligence, it has the capacity of fatten, shape and form everything. And can you postulate or think of anything outside of space? So it's all appearing in space, so nothing can be postulated out, so it all must be that space. And they call it space-like awareness. And then look at the myriads of different ways it can express in pattern, shapes and forms. Words, thoughts, ideas, insects, birds, human beings, worlds, galaxies, all the rest. Look in nature, the way that awareness is functioning, or intelligence is functioning. Forming galaxies, stars, they're imploding, exploding, growing up, worlds all over the place, and oceans and things like that. Everything forming everywhere. Everything is that awareness. What I call awareness. You can call it God, you can call it whatever you like. But it is a vibrating essence or energy.
Yeah.
Spontaneously vibrating. It's not time bound at all. Time has duration. When does now begin? Grab it right now. I've got it. It's gone. But I've got it again. So it's ever fresh. Ever fresh, as I say, it's always spontaneously aware. Has no beginning, no end. No past, no future. Not time bound at all. Say, I was in the past. I'll say, try and live yesterday. Try and live a moment ago. You realise you can't go back and live yesterday, but you can recall it. It's only a memory now, and you recall it. And the only reality you're giving it is when you're recalling it right now. Because what was your thought? What were you thinking 5 minutes ago? What was the thought then? Unless you can recall it, it's not there. It won't be there. The same with the future. You can anticipate and imagine the future, but you can't live a moment in the future. So realise you've never been away from this immediate awareness, spontaneously aware. But we put all the words, since we put the words or labels on them, the different concepts, we seemingly change it. It's no thing. It's no thing. And the only way you can know it is to say, am I unaware right now? Well, no, you know damn well you're not unaware. So if you're not unaware, you must be aware. So what other description do you have to put on it? And whatever description you put on it, it'll be only another conceptual description. But you can't negate your aware of being. And that's another label we put on. You are being right now. You're not wasing or will be. You are pure being right now in the moment. Being can never be becoming. And that's what we think. We will become, realise, we'll become this, become that. But that's a fiction. You won't become anything. It'll always be this fresh and new moment. Ever fresh, ever new. And they tell you that in the scriptures. The great perfection is non-conceptual awareness. Now the great perfection is another word for absolute. What can you add to the absolute? Not one thing. What can you take away from it? Not one thing. It wouldn't be absolute if you could. So what's perfection? What can you add to perfection? Nothing. What can you take away from it? Nothing. So they're saying to it the same thing. And the great perfection is non-conceptual awareness. Drop your concepts, but you know that you can't drop the concepts. Concepts will still come up.
Yeah, look beyond them.
Yeah, look beyond them. See past them.
Yeah.
Don't cling to them. Don't fixate on them. Be utterly awake with the 5 senses wide open, where you're seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, thinking equally. You're not attached to one of the senses to the exclusion of the others. But we don't live like that. We take on one of the sections, the hearing or the seeing or the fear or the activity, fixate on it to the exclusion of all others. And see what that does. It means you're not living, totally living. You're living from the conceptual image, a dead image, a past image. And that past image, a dead image, can't keep up with life. Like I use the analogy of the bucket of water. Pull a bucket of water out of the river, sit it on the bank. What's it going to do? It's going to sit there and become stagnant. But what's happened to the river? It's moving merrily along. Might be at a flat pace where it's pretty still, takes a bit longer to move through. There it can go down rapids, bubble and sparkling and living on it. Go through forests, sandy beaches, all these amazing places. Finishes up merging back into the ocean again. Can you ever get that drop of water out of it again? You can't. But the bucket's still sitting on the bank, stagnant.
Yeah.
While we're living from this persona, this mask, this conceptual image, we're behind the 8 ball. You never keep up with life. And that's when the unhappiness and all the rest of all the other psychological problems come up. Will be there because we're not living totally. We're living from the conceptual image, a dead image of that.
Yeah.
It's keeping us in bondage. And they tell you that in a lot of places. Relieve us of the bondage of self. So I tell you in the big book of AA. Relieve the bondage of self. Because that self is the bondage, the personal self. Not the one self, not the admin. It's the personal self. We're in bondage to that. We're in bondage to concepts. Like that. But open up your concepts and be free. Move, let them be absolutely awake with unfixated awareness. Be utterly awake with the five senses wide open, and be utterly open with unfixated. Well, you're not fixating on any of it.
Yeah.
So you're with life in its totality, not from the point of view of a dead entity that's got to become something. It's putting the limiting labels, or I'm not good enough, or I'm fearful, or I'm depressed, or I'm unhappy. And that other one we put up, well, after all, I'm only human. So we put up, I couldn't do anything, I don't know. Take the limitations and boundaries off yourself.
But I still like the way, and thank you, John, the way the question is actually posed is such a beautiful way of showing that initial distinction and the belief that I have to become one with awareness, in opposition to the plain recognition that you cannot be unaware, you cannot be anything other than that. So it's a really nicely said, and I love, John, when you say, I struggled with this one when I first heard the message. That was a long time ago, and you are not struggling with that anymore, and you're bringing it up as a pointer.
Yeah.
So it, how easy the recognition is.
Yes, the struggle's gone there. It will.
Yes.
We'll go on, people. And the seeing through this is quite simple.
Yeah.
And the recognising.
Dawning, like, oh, right. I don't have to become one. I am not anything other or opposite than the, awareness in the world. And I, and all of it, being just one emptiness vibrating into patterns, shapes and forms.
One essence appearing, patterning, shaping, forming, expressing as everything.
Yeah.
And the nothing also.
And now we have one from Rohan. Can't wait to read it. Hi Bob and Kat. On the topic of preferences, another way to put it is to say that I am that in which preferences or opinions arise and dissolve. I am the basic screen, as Bob calls it. Our problem is identifying with the preferences rather than that in which they appear. Beautifully said.
Yeah, that's beautifully said.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, everything arises in what I am. The plain open field of knowing awareness.
Expressing beautifully through
Yeah, beautiful.
Rohan now.
Yeah, Rohan's beautiful. Now we have, that would be nice. Brett, wonderful. Moving from duality towards non-duality to evolve and I dissolve. In all things, with all things. One flowing dance. Can you hear the music? Can you be the music? Can you be? Oh, how beautifully poetic. Can you not be? Beautiful. Jane, dear Kat, you are such gem. Loving, expressing, pulling Sundays together for us all pointing. Thank you so much. Oh, you darling.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you. Yeah, it's an honor. It is an absolute honor and privilege. It's the most beautiful chapter of my life, if I can even say there is such a thing as my life. But it is absolute honor. Yeah. Yeah, well, if I could hear myself from outside, I would say I'm worshipping the messenger. It kind of sounds this way, but no, it's totally beyond overlooking or putting concept on that phenomenal empty space. Like if I had the conceptual image of him, I would see through it anyway, because looking and seeing him without a conceptual image is absolutely mind-blowing, and I cannot stop shaking my head how people cannot see it. Now, Ben.
I couldn't see it for years either.
Yeah. But seeing you, oh gosh. Ben, resistance to preferences is another sneaky preference. It is like trying to sweep the floor with a dirty broom. Love it. But even recognizing this, at times the feeling of resistance is probably going to come and seduce the attention on the mind away anyway. It is what it is. Yes. That is such a beautiful recognition. Of course, all's included. Of course, the resistance included. Of course, all the totality is there. Volcanoes, fires, floods, tears, joys, all of it.
Yeah, but recognise, as I say, as he says, the feeling of resistance. The feeling's a sensation,
Yeah.
which we've labelled resistance, because we've had that previous sensation before, and we've labelled it resistance before. We think it's the same sensation. What happened if that feeling came up and you really looked at it as though you're seeing it for the first time, without putting the old label on it? You might get a surprise.
Yeah, you will just experience the energy moving through the body, and mind having a tendency to contextualize and make meaning and interpret that energy as something. Resistance, for example, instead of excitement, or instead of just mastering the energy, or instead of no interpretation at all. But yeah, that's the tendency. Story comes up with that energy, because this generator, this is what it does. This is generating the whole world of projections, and seeing how it does it is just mind-blowing. And resistance is as welcome as every other feeling, because it's not personal, with or without the label. If it comes without, it's one expression. If the label comes and is recognized, yet another expression, but it is all just the same play. Yeah, thank you for that, Ben. It's a good point to highlight always. Alvaro, beautiful, great pointers. Gracias. Incredible love itself, Bob and Kat. Love you both. Jane, we love you too. And Sharna, so God, the Absolute, is neither personal or impersonal. Absolutely. It's neither and it's both.
It just is.
It just is. Yeah, nothing can be said about it. Yeah, even putting a label, God or the Absolute, it kind of suggests the third person. It kind of suggests it is it or it is that, but it's not even it or that. It is the very knowing principle, that I am principle. So it can't even say it's I or it's the other, because there is no distance between I and the other.
And the is not what was or will be. It just is.
And at the same time, it is am. It's not is am. I am. It's a singular, and it is a subjectivity. It is the source of all experiencing. It is not outside. It is not it. Although, language doesn't really let you include both it and I.
What do I do with my drink?
Here.
Thank you.
And now? Yeah, but I love that question too, because it goes beyond any sort of distinguishing. It just takes you beyond the language, the impossibility of expressing it properly, correctly in the dualistic language. It's yummy. And Steve, being a somebody seems to be the cause of suffering. There is a book called Being Nobody, Going Nowhere. The title is a helpful reminder.
Yes.
It is beautiful. Being nobody, going nowhere. Yeah, I remember you, Bob, said when you met Nisargadatta, you had these 4 things. I realize I have nowhere to go, no one to be, nothing to see. And what else was it?
Nothing to be, nothing to see, nowhere to go.
And no one to be.
No one to
Yeah, that's it. It's just you left completely with the carpet swept from underneath you. It's just pure being. There's no agenda in the being. It's just, yeah. And it doesn't mean that you're going to be dysfunctional because of it. Life functions. Like people are drunk and have, zoo night, and they still do the physiological things. Everything looks after itself. Yeah, nobody needs to do anything at all. The cause of suffering is the I image, me in control. Alvaro, that's correct. Yeah, without the me, there is no suffering. Who would be there suffering? And God, some thoughts, effects appears after hearing satsang, some thoughts effect appears after hearing satsang, but is not grounded yet and sprout out. I hear and I forget. I hear and I forget it. I don't if it's the right way. Yeah.
Siddha Rameshwar says, what remembers and forgets is not you. That essence that you are doesn't need to remember or forget, it just is. But the remembering and the forgetting takes place in the believed in me, if it appears, you know.
And that precise pointer is really to go beyond, to actually see that there is mind that remembers, and that is mind that forgets, and that is mind that tells the story that I am not it yet, I am not grounded, I still need to become. This is all happening in the narrative. You are the space-like awareness in which that narrative takes place. What you are is beyond both. Getting it, not getting it, becoming, hearing, not hearing. All of it is happening. It is a movie on the screen, and you are that screen. And I know it may, at this point, make no sense, but yet persist. It is there. It is there. It's Michael, woohoo! I just grabbed now. Oops, it's gone. Much love to you both. Michael. There you go. I don't know if this is the right way, like being exposed to the sun, God is asking. Yeah, you know, even actually asking yourself, oh, am I doing it right or am I doing it wrong? Nah, this is just part of the narrative. You're not doing it. You know, life brought you here to listen to these talks. Blame life. Yeah, it really isn't up to you. It is what it is. It's not right or wrong. It's not good or bad. It's just what it is. And it doesn't matter either way, because that's how it expresses. So you can't do anything wrong. You can't get anything wrong. You always and ever innocent. And you always pure, plain. You may dream that you are still trapped somewhere. That's just a dream. In reality, you're not. And you know it also. It's just a narrative that pretends that it is otherwise. Johannes, when there is no independent self, there is no control about the way the world is perceived. When there is no independent self, there is no control about the way the world is perceived. No, there's no control, even if there is a self.
No doubt the world is functioning as it should.
Yeah, if there is no independent self, there is no control. If there is independent self, that independent self is imagined, not real. So there also is no control. Whether you believe you're in charge or you don't believe you are in charge, or you see how you don't beat your heart, how you don't control the weather, inner weather and outer weather, whether you see it or not, you have no control. Illusion of control comes with the separate self. Illusion of responsibility as a personal self comes with that imagined entity, that little man who is in charge of doing everything. But that's just an illusion.
Many years ago there was a play going around, Stop the World, I Want to Get Off.
Yeah. Mukti, there is not two. This that we call a field of awareness and everything dancing in it is undivided.
Yeah.
It is not there is no me. There is a concept of me. The concept of me is everything and nothing immediately.
Just a concept.
Beautiful. Yeah, there is not two. Absolutely. Yeah. It's well said. This that we call a field of awareness and everything dancing in it is undivided. It is not that there is no me. There is a concept of me. It's everything and nothing immediately. Yeah, it's just another image on the screen. D. I formed the view decades ago that connecting with the senses was presumably a sensible way to live, but in apparent practice found it boring. It is appreciated that this has likely been where the attention was partly in thought and intermittently in touch with the senses. So presumably earnestness is the key.
Yes, if you're seeing it boring or good or whatever, where's that being judged from? There must be a sense of separation from it.
Yes, that's given. Charlie, when you realize nothing to become, nothing to achieve, simply being in the now, you are that. Love to you, Bob and Kat.
Love to you, Charlie. Good to see you.
Yes, and that's so true. Yeah. Michael, dirty broom. Yes, trying to find the answer with the mind is like being too busy mopping up the water to turn the tap off. That is beautiful. Wow, what a great analogies, Michael. Yeah. Yeah, I heard the one about someone rescuing drowning people and being so busy just getting after one after another that it wouldn't go to the bridge and stop them being pushed over. Mukti, the seer is the seen and the seeing. The seen is and seer and seeing. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The whole trinity, seer, seen, seeing. It can't be divided. Like, try to exclude one part of it and it's all gone. So that's evidence that it isn't three things. It's just concepts that divide it. And it's a good reminder to ponder upon and even contemplate or even just experiment or just sit with it, to actually really see through that pointer. So you don't ever need to create an entity that is doing anything. I'm starting a new campaign, Bob for PM, Brett says.
No way.
Thus, the programming told me that being self-centered was bad, and so I believed I was bad. Futile attempts to find the good me, the one that is not self-centered, is actually self-centered and is beginning to be seen for what it is. Thank you, Bob, Jane, Terry and Kat, and to all the bringers of truth. My gosh, I love how he put it. Thus, this is beautiful. I have to read it again because this is such a brilliant way to put it. Programming told me that being self-centered was bad. That is, who doesn't resonate with that? And futile attempts to find the good me, the one that is not self-centered, are actually self-centered. Of course. And are beginning to be seen for what they are. Oh my gosh, yeah, you got it. That's, yeah, beautiful. Claire, being is enough. We are enough as we are. Love to you both, Bob and Kat. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Enough as we are. Being is enough. Yeah, yeah. The idea that something has to change, something has to be different, something has to be better, more pleasant, more holy, more light, more complete, more loving, more anything, is just a thought. Just go look past it. What is the absolute. It is just to be recognized. Control is an illusion, Claire says. Exactly. Jane, love to you, dear Tass. A joy to pass the pointers. What passes through, pass it on. Yeah. Johannes, the idea of liberation is reinforcing the self-centeredness. Yeah, idea of liberation, what Taz was pointing out, trying to find get out of the self-center, liberate yourself from self-center. Isn't how self-centered is that, Gosh, I'll be honest, the whole quest for the enlightenment, for me, looking for the enlightenment and liberation, who was looking and for who?
Yeah.
It was all for me. Because I was suffering. I wanted to be free. I wanted to stop feeling divided, separated, incomplete, unworthy. It was all for the self-centered. Self-centered. It is a self-centered idea, but it just somehow had to be this way. You were also looking for the truth and for the liberation from the I. So the search seemingly starts from, if you weren't lost, you wouldn't start seeking. You wouldn't need the idea of liberation.
And the belief there was someone out there that was going to give it to me.
That's right, yeah. Oh yeah, this is true, yeah. Looking for someone superior that you can worship as a messenger and save you. Doesn't come this way. It appears so.
Yep.
Yeah, the idea of liberation is reinforcing self-centeredness. Yeah, well, the idea is just the idea, yeah. Yes, it is an idea, and the idea includes a person who will be liberated, Mukti says. Totally, totally. I mean, look at the cats. We have a couple of cats roaming around here. They are not seeking liberation because they have never lost it. How was it lost in the first place? Bob explained on the beginning. The being a child, learning the language, identifying as a body, identifying with the story, taking on board all ideas and illusions about being separate. If that wasn't taken on board, what liberation would anybody need? What liberation do you need if you pause the thought and there is no story that you need something else than what is? It's only the mind that tells you that there is anything wrong with this moment. But yeah, how would it play out if not for that magnificent illusion of bondage and liberation and good and bad and pleasure and pain and old age and all of it is just part of the display. You either have duality with all its darkness and light and pleasure and pain, or you have nothing. So it is how it is. Michael, Bob, what is the significance of the phenomenon of feeling to you? Feeling alive, feeling being, as opposed to seeing being. That's a beauty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of the function, feelings, thought, feeling and emotion, three aspects of the one. Seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling. They're all part of the function.
Yeah. You're good.
What's this?
Yeah, it's significance of phenomenon of feeling to you. Significance of phenomenon of feeling. Feeling alive, feeling being, as opposed to seeing being. Yeah, like I would say it's probably more of a, I don't know if that's where Michael, where you're coming from, but I feel that it's kind of a slight distinction to put in words between understanding and embracing experientially, almost embodying in a way. Understanding is kind of, I think there are different channels through which people communicate. Some people are more kind of visual, some are more kind of intellectual, some are more in a channel of kinesthetics.
As soon as it's feeling is a sensation, as soon as you bring it to the sensation, that's a thought, feeling and emotion are one and the same thing. A feeling. So when it's a feeling, it's a thought based of being alive.
Yeah, I could say that the same basic screen or that same basic being can be expressed differently for people using different channels of communication or different language. People inclined to be more kind of kinesthetic embodied will talk about feeling. People who are more inclined towards the visual field or towards the intellectual sort of approach will talk about understanding.
And a blind man certainly, you're not going to talk about. He'll talk more about feeling, won't he?
That's true. Yeah. But what they point, what's beyond the feeling or seeing, that's what's pointed. But I do like the kinesthetic wording as well. Feeling, like experiencing.
Yeah. Good.
Bill, the glory is when you cease to exist. True awakening is the dissolution of that which seeks fulfillment. Again and again, earnestly investigate that which seeks. A glimpse will reveal you the true glimpses will reveal your true essence. Bill is reminding about the earnestly investigate that which seeks. Who is there who wants anything to be different? Who knows better than God how this moment should look like? Johannes, so duality is an appearance in the absolute without any meaning. Yep, the meaning-making machinery is here. So you can give it as many meanings as you want and enjoy all of them. But then none of it is true. They just a display, they just dance of light.
Definition of appearance is that which seems to be.
Yes.
It's only seemingly.
Yes. Claire, do you both feel it is an attachment to thoughts or programming that causes us suffering needlessly? That's a good way to say it, I'll say. Do you feel that it is attachment to thoughts or programming, attachment to thinking and conditioning that causes us suffering?
It's fixating on something or attaching to it,
And that is also a habit. That attachment and that tendency to believe whatever appears in the head, that is also conditioned. That is just a part of the software. So you can't even blame yourself for having that sort of an attachment because you grew up with that, you're conditioned with that. It's completely innocent and mechanical. To recognize that this is part of the play, it means to see through it. To see that this attachment may still play out, these feelings may still come, these thoughts may still come, and they are just what's happening on the screen. And you can be just a curious observer of whatever your own body is demonstrating and bringing up, and it is all impersonal. Theodore, how do you get rid of compulsive thinking? How do you get rid of compulsive thinking?
Leave it as it is, don't fixate on it. We'll move on, don't fixate on it, keep it there. Thoughts will arise. Thoughts arise naturally all the time. Left as it is, they'll move on. We fixate on them, attach to them, keep them there. That's a problem.
It's just being natural with life, because you're looking past there may be obsession in the mind that is, it may be obsessing about one thought, or it may be obsessing, or even in the mind that is, out of balance. Just repeatedly recognizing that you're not your mind, whether the mind is clean or dirty, or the mind is crazy, or the mind is peaceful, whatever the mind is, you're not the mind. And life may still bring solution. Life may still bring whatever is required in the situation. It may bring a psychologist or psychiatrist that will prescribe a drug for the temporary restoration of the balance, or it may be a mantra, or it may be a physical exercise. And I don't recommend snacking to break the obsession pattern, because it is unsustainable for the body. But people do sedate the obsessive compulsive thinking with lots of unhealthy habits, and that's perfect too. That's also what life sometimes brings up to amplify the suffering, so investigation will be facilitated faster. Like Bob was drinking, you know, like getting rid of the obsessive compulsive thinking in your 20s and 30s, just sedating it with alcohol, and took him to the gutter.
That was making room for more compulsive.
It does, yeah. And it was perfect. If this alcoholic drinking didn't happen, suffering wouldn't be there, search wouldn't have happened,
Yeah.
and a beautiful, beautiful life story with the miracles on the way, miracles of seeking and finding, miracles of, it's just, what an exquisite story.
It's all in connection.
Yes, yes. And don't we love our stories about what's happening in the world? Especially when we know they're just stories. And however beautiful, not real. The whole body is meaning making, Mukti says. Yeah, the whole body is the meaning making.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole body is actually transmitting and
Exactly.
receiving sensory information. You know, the eyes and the ears that create the sense of space.
Every cell is suffused with that intelligence energy.
Mm.
Life.
Yeah,
You are the life itself.
yeah, yeah. Without the five senses, there is no space. Without the sixth sense, there is no time. So there's absolutely all body projecting the whole experience. I mean, the body is just a transmitter receiver. Body is just an instrument through which the consciousness is projecting the whole experience. Nisargadatta would say, don't take delivery. Yeah. And Johannes, I'm sorry if I say the name wrong. So there is no solution for the appeared illusion of self. There is no solution for the appeared illusion of self. Well, for the self there is absolutely no hope.
There's no self.
Yeah.
How could there be a solution to something that's not
Yeah,
there?
that's the most hopeless thing I heard on my way of seeking being a me and wanting that experience for the me, when I said that experience is there all the time when the me is out of the picture. But how about me? But what me? But, you know, I want it. Not the I is a projection. The I is a myth. Just the I is the contraction, is the mask. For the I, it's really nothing. It's just the consciousness waking up from the I. It is so fun hanging out with you guys, Michael says. Thank you for hanging out with us.
Yes, thanks for.
Yeah, no solution for the self. Jane, who needs to get rid of it? Ah, yeah, that's a good angle also. The me is a memory of you in the mind. Then the wanting to get rid of it is also the mind creating the story of wanting to get rid of it, of the compulsive thought. See beyond to being that the story appears upon. Yeah, back to the basic screen. And on that basic screen there is a me wanting to get rid of the me, or, yeah. That is where we are. And yes, and Jane is answering Michael, and Claire is saying thank you. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Good stuff
Good stuff.
coming from you all.
Yes. Thank you for beautiful questions
Yeah.
and the insights.
Okay.